minutes ago.
Why 5 minutes ago? Okay,
Why
never
not
mind. No,
an
I don't want to
hour
know.
ago.
All right, so one thing that we've been talking about a bit amongst ourselves, and something that's starting to make some splashes in the news is, virtual reality is here. It may be just the first kind of generation of it, but people are getting very immersed in the PlayStation VR, the HTC Vive, or the Oculus Rift. People are getting very, very into it, and we're seeing the effects of virtual reality. We're seeing people playing games like in the horror genre that on a regular console on your TV screen would not be considered scary. They wouldn't like they might be a jump scare every now and then, but you wouldn't call them scary. We are seeing these affect people so heavily when using their VR headsets that people are literally tearing a $1,000 piece of equipment off of their head and breaking it in the process to get away from this.
And during very innocuous things too.
Yes, things that like you would consider not normally that scary, but when you're
roller coaster tech demos.
Yep, exactly.
People freaking out, losing all sense of equilibrium.
Yep.
I mean, it's kind of crazy. It is a crazy immersive medium. And it kind of makes you wonder, okay, so if this is the kind of violent, emotional, and physical reaction that people have to something that is not even directly threatening their lives, then what kind of reaction are they going to have if you took an experience like Outlast and translated that into a VR experience?
For those who don't know, Outlast, at least the sequel, has a sequence where you are caught, strapped to a table, and a guy basically tries to make you a woman.
He cuts your dick off.
Yeah, he tries to make you a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens. And it is like watching, literally, if you just sit there watching like Markiplier do it, you sit in the chair like uncomfortable, and like it's hard to watch that sequence. It's really viscerally difficult to get through. I can't imagine it in VR.
And that's the thing, is that, when you take and translate that same experience to a VR experience, that's going to make anyone, I don't care who you are, that's going to make anyone have a reaction.
Oh, yeah.
Period. There's no way. So what kind of ethical limitations exist on making this kind of content? We saw a lot of this discussion when the ESRB was being formed.
Yes.
And around the Senate panels. And they were talking about the violence, quote unquote, the violence that was portrayed in things like Night Trap or
Grand Theft Auto,
Mortal
Kombat.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat was central to that one. What was the other one with the gun? Was it Time Cops, Time Chasers,
something like that?
Lethal
yeah.
Enforcers.
Was it Lethal Enforcers? It was
Lethal Enforcers. That was
Oh my God! Christ with the actual answer.
Nice job, Nose for Fat
Good
Two.
answers all day. Thank you very much,
Constitution.
Peter Molyneux. Thank you very much.
Anyway, so yeah, the discussion has already been put out there, and I think that when you look at, I don't think that there have been that many societal changes based on the level of violence portrayed in video game content. I don't think that we saw a lot of the desensitization that people were worried about, but VR, I think, takes that a step further.
Absolutely. Like in the 90s, they were called murder simulators, which was completely unfair at the time. It was inflammatory. It was just meant to make a headline. That's what that comment was out there for.
Right.
And now, in 2016, when you can put a headset on and immerse yourself in this environment and potentially murder someone, it can be a murder simulator. That could
really
be an
can be.
accurate description all of a sudden.
Absolutely. Now, Nika, I'm kind of curious because you have a very negative, visceral reaction to violence. Just not even in a VR sense, but violence when it's portrayed in a video game, and I'm going to assume movies too.
It's not necessarily true. It depends on the type of violence.
Okay.
Like, I can actually do gore. Like, there are some gory animes that I actually really enjoy, but I don't like horror. There's a difference.
Okay, so for example, a scene like in Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, when in that opening scene they had to open Paz up and take the bomb out of her.
That didn't bother me.
No, it didn't bother you at all? Not even if you were the doctor that was doing
If
that was supposed to be doing the cutting.
If I was doing it in VR as the doctor and I had to actually cut her open, that would be a different story.
I mean, but this is the level of realism that we're talking, the level of detail that we're talking about that can be replicated in VR, which is not what that wasn't even remotely even close to the table back in, what was it, 1992 when we had the ESRB talks?
Sure. Now we have motion controllers. Like, you could very easily be simulating picking up a scalpel and doing the incision.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
we're there.
Exactly.
That technology exists now.
I
right.
think that's a little harder for me.
No,
just has to go into mentally for something like that.
Now take and just refocus the goals of that scene. And now you're not trying to save her or take a bomb out of her. You're
carving someone up.
You are dismembering someone.
No, I can't do that.
Right? Like it takes it.
I think that in the sense of Paz, like in the end, I would know. Okay, I'm saving everyone's life by getting the bomb out of her. I'll grin and bear it and do this. But when it comes to like becoming, it's like a murder simulator game, or where you're like playing a serial killer or something.
You guys ever watch Dexter? Dexter, the VR game.
Grand Theft Auto 7.
Be fair, though, those are criminals.
Sure, okay. Grand Theft Auto 7 in VR.
Yeah.
You now have to send a message to the other mob gang, and you have to dismember someone in VR and leave it in their house.
I mean, the whole
another gang member,
dude. That whole torture scene from Grand Theft Auto 5. I mean, imagine that in VR. Like that was enough to make some people react like they were ill to that scene.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were some you think.
Now, there's a few things to consider here, though. All right, first of all, in most cases, not all, obviously, but in most cases, when a game is being designed, there's usually some type of overarching narrative or point they're trying to drive home. Right? Now, that's not to say that there isn't somebody out there that would be like, let's make a game where literally all you do is fucking wicked ass murder shit.
Sure.
Okay. Secondly, in any game that's ever had this level of stuff, there's always various warnings about it, right? So to a certain extent, you have to realize that if you're putting this on and you're putting yourself into the situation, like, that's a choice you're making, right? It's just like if you were to go out and drink alcohol. You have to know, like Nika, for example, knows how she feels about gore and violence. Right? So she's probably going to think 2 or 3 times about going into that situation, right? So, I mean, the idea of is it ethical to create this kind of content as a developer only goes so far, because it is obviously still free will when it comes to playing this.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, as a developer, you build in restrictions at the point where certain actions end up running up against an ethical wall. I think we've seen this before with content that's been removed from games in the past. I mean, we made fun of Fable and Peter Molyneux earlier, but clearly that was something he felt was not appropriate to keep in the game and something that he ended up removing. I mean,
right. Or with what was the Call of Duty where you go through the airport gunning people down? There was
it was one of the Modern Warfares. I'm pretty
second
sure.
one, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
There was an option at the beginning where it mentions, there's some really, 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 fucked up shit in this game. If you don't want to see it, hit this option, and it, plays you through the game, and you skip over those parts. So yes, there are some, certain functions that people can, and in some cases, probably should.
But I don't think you're thinking about this in exactly the way that I'm asking it. And that is, like, in terms of the developer, like, if you were a developer wanting to put a game out there, like, what is the thing? Like, at what point do you start running up against, like, man, I don't know if I can put this out here because I don't know if someone who is totally unstable would be able to use this as some kind of
let's be real.
training. Hang on, no. I think that these are very important questions that developers need to ask themselves.
But I feel like this is the video game industry, and in the end, they're going to think, is this going to make me money or not? Will there be enough people in the end who will play this, who will buy this game and make me enough money, or is it too far to the extreme that most people would say no?
Those are not the only considerations involved, because I'll tell you what, if you end up pushing the envelope of violence in a new medium like this too fucking far, that's how you end up in front of the Senate. That's how you end up with government regulation. And that's what you end up really risking if you push that envelope too far, too fast. We know that we can create incredibly immersive and huge worlds with the existing technology and texture modeling that we have and use for video games all the time. And you take that and you bump the resolution up and you make it so that it works in the headset, and suddenly that experience translates into the VR experience. But what I'm saying is that if you portray the exact same level of violence that we are right now with games, that there is going to be a backlash, whether it's cultural, whether it's from gamers themselves going, this is too much for me to handle, and it's economic, but there will be some kind of consequence by pushing that envelope too far, too fast. And what I'm asking is, where is that line? Where's the line right now with VR being at the head of the curve? Only the people who are at the head of the technological curve are adopting this technology right now. Where can game developers legally put that limit?
Yeah.
Or not legally, but reasonably put that limit.
Yeah, somewhere where they can eventually, if they do have to go up in front of the Senate, say, well, no, here was our thought process, and here's where we decided, you know what, that's where the line is. Because, like you say, like we're already using VR simulations to help people cope with PTSD. It has been shown that it can help alter your mind, although they use it normally in a constructive manner. Now they're going to have to be able to defend this sort of mind-altering capability effectively. They're going to have to be able to defend that at some point, because we know, we all know what's going to happen. There's going to be a shooting and someone's going to blame it on VR. That's exactly going to happen.
That's exactly it. And the thing is like, you know, if this has military applications, then you can't tell me that it also doesn't have some kind of violence desensitization element to it as well. There absolutely is. Just like there's an element of violence desensitization with video games. Like, denying that, I think, is denying objective reality. But the thing is that it's not so bad that people can't discern fantasy from reality. When you have the ability, when you're looking at a TV, you have a window into this other world that's being portrayed. It's not this like this
it's voyeuristic. You know that you're not there.
Yes.
Yeah. And with VR, it is designed inherently to break down those divisions.
Right. I think what we're trying to get at is, we have, like, forever game developers have been able to look back, sit back, and just say, hey, at the end of the day, it's a video game. But what we're trying to recognize is that we are crossing that threshold now. We are moving beyond being able to say this is just the game. No, you are trying to create a reality for somebody.
Right.
That's what this is.
Right.
So there is, I think, an ethical approach that you have to take to it. And maybe even pull it back from just an ethical approach. You look at the financial aspect of it, they're going to have to start considering, what are people going to comfortably handle? Because shooting someone in VR is going to be different than shooting someone on a traditional flat screen TV.
Man, not just that, but there are potential lawsuits from just putting someone through that experience and not notifying them beforehand. Yeah. I mean, look, we started off this segment saying that there are incredible physical and emotional reactions that happen when people are undergoing VR. And if you activate someone's flight or fight response like that, and you know, like you have to be responsible for that on some level. Like, you have to hold yourself responsible for that on some level as a game developer. And I think
when you say restrictions, then do you mean like what content should we not put in there, or could restrictions also take the form of, you know, things like, I mean, obviously we have the ESRB right now, but let's be honest, it's not entirely enforced, right? So would restrictions for VR also take form in other ways, you know, stricter, you know, rating enforcements?
Hell no.
You know,
No.
so this is literally just what we can and can't put in there.
No, I'm not even saying that. I'm not even saying, you know, that there needs to be some kind of rule or regulation for this at all. What I'm saying is what I'm asking, rather,
Right.
is if you were a developer, what is your limit? What are you willing to put your players, your users through to be able to accurately be able to get across your intent, right?
Right.
Like Death Stranding, it looks like an incredible experience, and one that I am 100% down for doing with a controller in front of my television. But if it becomes a VR experience, I'm not sure that I'm ready to take that fucking ride. You understand me? Like, that is one that,
I'm right there with you.
you know what I mean? Like, that's, I'm just not, I'm ready for that thing to touch me, but I'm just not ready for it to touch me down here. You understand? You know what I mean? Like, it takes it to, it makes it way more intense. It takes it to a different level. And you know, if
I have a question now, a personal question here, because I've never been into horror games before. You know, I mean, when the stream got me to play Outlast, like, I was really against it. It took me a while to really start to get into it till I eventually got to the point where it's like, fuck it, I have to finish this game as quickly as I can so this can end, right? Never liked them. Never wanted to play them. My most anticipated game for VR, though, is Resident Evil 7. Why?
Because horror connects with VR so effectively, you want the experience.
It's part of
just
it.
the experience.
It's part of it. It's also probably the best looking game slated for VR right now.
Yeah, what else do you know that? Now, though, you brought up an interesting point, though, when you mentioned the ESRB, because you're right. What are they going to do? Restrict things better? Probably not. But they are, when they are rating these games, are going to have to recognize the difference between shooting someone in a VR game and shooting someone in a traditional game. It's going to be different as an experience. So when they're rating games out, I would expect to see a lot more M ratings to games that would traditionally get a T rating.
Yeah. I mean,
that's true.
Yeah, I think that is definitely going to have to be a consideration. And I mean, I see people in the chat room going, "Oh, you guys want censorship, blah blah blah."
It's a slippery slope. I understand.
I
the fear
do
there.
understand
it's
that.
It's the 90s all over again. I get it.
I get. Look, but that's what I'm trying to say is that, like, you avoid a lot of problems by really having some consideration on what your content is.
Yeah. You know,
and not being so cavalier with it as to go, fuck it.
It's kind of like the "this is why we can't have nice things" argument. If you take a measured approach with it, you'll be able to defend your artistic choices later on.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
Yes, what a great. I'm sorry, Robbie, but
no, you're right. No, yeah, go
that's a great point. That's a really great point, because a lot of times I think the line between gratuitous and making an artistic choice with violence and the experience, that is a really, really important thing.
What it's going to come down to, you
I
know,
think so,
I mean, you know, we're talking about this in extremes, right? We're talking about Murder Simulator.
Right.
So yes, the idea that you go and pick up a game and it's like, look, there's a shit ton of innocent people and families and a bunch of weapons, you know, go to fucking town. You're right. How do you defend that, right? But when you're putting, you know, people into narratives, into stories, trying to show different perspectives and stuff like that, that's, to me, where the difference is. If you can actually, you know, take an instance where, you know, you're sitting in front of the grand jury and they're like, why? And on you know, a deeper level, you can explain to them why. Then okay, like, to me, that's where the line is drawn.
Right.
And then obviously you should be taking all the other usual restrictions. I mean, I would even be for the ESRB coming out with, you know, a higher rating. You know, put the murder simulators, you know, next to the little Playboy bunny censored crap in. FYE.
The return of the adult rating, basically.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing that was great about the ESRB is that it actually, you know, it's so funny because a lot of people really reacted very, very poorly to the idea when it was first proposed. Yeah. But it was really, we want to give consumers more information when buying products. And that's what it held to.
Yeah.
It never moved from that goal and that objective. And I do think that as long as we're still providing consumers with the information that they need, that is an important element to this. But as I said before, you have to be careful with the reactionary elements and with people who are going to come out and try to morally browbeat you.
Yep.
Based on your content. And if it's,
People already try to do that with games,
Of
even though
course.
it's not VR. So I mean, those people will always be there.
Absolutely.
But is it really going to make a difference in the type of content that's produced?
Here's what. Here's the difference. You're gonna have someone I don't know if it'll be Grand Theft Auto 7 or whatnot, but you will have them post a video of a scene where you're in VR jamming a knife up under someone's rib cage, and it's going to be gory and gratuitous, and it's going to shock anyone who looks at it.
and the thing is that the ability to do that, the ability to shock, the ability to have an emotional reaction needs to be there. But if the artistic ability to display those kinds of things is lost because of a game that decided to be dumb and gratuitous with it, that will be a huge waste for the medium. Okay? If you can defend your artistic choices, you start from a way more defensible position than if you're just making something to make the audience react.
So I feel like what we're kind of saying to the game developers out there is this is the birth of a brand new amazing medium. You have to handle this responsibly.
Tread lightly.
Yeah.
I think tread lightly.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Good
Yes.
job, Uncle Ben.
Thank you.
My name's Chris.
It's not what it looks like your name is.
Yeah, your name is Nosferatu,
Thanks.
just so you know.
You spelled it wrong. It's fat with a PH.
No, I spelled that one right.
It's fat with fat.
Well, I think that's going to wrap up our ethical discussion for today.
This has been Ethics with Final Encounter Cast.
I think it's an important thing to ask.
I
mean,
think
it's
so,
an important question to ask, and I think it's better to ask now when this issue isn't before a court and a judge,
Yeah.
and before there has been a big reaction to any of this, and then that way the dialogue is out there. People are thinking about it, and yeah, I think that's the important part. It's definitely a consideration that needs to happen.
Joe Lieberman's licking his lips. Don't give him any ammunition. We don't ever want to see him again.
Seriously. Anyway, all right.